live.
Hello, welcome to what is becoming a regular occurrence, the impromptu midweek Garibaldi Red podcast, as we discuss Nottingham Forest transfer news, and we'll look back a little bit on the win against Barnsley last night, which is becoming a bit of an afterthought, I suppose, after what's happened with Brennan Johnson and interest in him, and we'll discuss Lyle Taylor as well. We'll do that in the company of Sarah Clapson, who is on a bit of an internet delay, so we'll see how it goes. Sarah, hello, are you well? Can you hear me, Sarah?
Hello. Yes, very good. Thank you. Very good.
Good. It is a big delay. Tell us what's happening with Brennan Johnson then, and we'll kind of try and mitigate the delay. You can just tell us what's happening.
Yes, I did say good morning. If you could hear me, I don't know if you can. Okay. Yeah, well, Brentford have again shown their interest, that they've never really gone away. They're one of many clubs that are keen on him. He's having a great season, obviously on the back of last year's loan spell at Lincoln as well, so he's got no shortage of interest. Brentford are the ones that are really sniffing around at the moment and have really tried to test the waters. Forest are certainly having their resolve tested. If the deal that Brentford have put forward does go through, it would be a club record one for both clubs, which is a heck of a lot of money. It puts Forest in a very difficult position, with a huge decision to make. I'd be keeping Brennan Johnson. I think he's priceless at the moment. If you're challenging for position and you're going for a top 6 place, you need to be keeping players like him, your best players. He's going to make the difference. He's a game changer. He can have such an effect on games and where Forest finish in the table that I'd be keeping him whatever money is offered. But I know that's easier said than done when somebody comes and puts millions and millions of pounds on the table, and if you're looking at that and thinking as a club what you could potentially do with it, it's difficult. I can see the position that it puts Forest in, but for me that's offset by the impact that Brennan Johnson has and the momentum that Forest are building at the moment, and the team spirit, the culture that Steve Cooper has really instilled. They've got the wind behind them at the moment. They're really on a roll, and you don't want to disrupt that too much. And it would be a real shame, I think, if that did happen by losing arguably the best player.
Certainly it would be a gut punch for him to go, for the players as well, after you see how well he played against Barnsley. I think Forest record sales 15 million. So, well, I know it was a Sombalonga to Middlesbrough, so it would be more than that. Sounds like it's about 18 million. I suppose the timing is a thing, Sarah, isn't it? It's kind of how you replace him. They're looking at Wallace and Bowler. Different. Well, Bowler's a similar kind of player. Wallace is a bit different. He's very graceful, but I don't think he's got the pace. Forest will be in a bit of a tricky situation in terms of replacing Brennan, you think, when clubs know they've got a fair bit of money in their back pocket suddenly?
Yeah, I guess that is kind of the other the impact of it, isn't it? If you're then trying to buy players and clubs know that you've just made a club record sale, then the asking price for other players is suddenly going to go up. So yeah, it does have a knock-on effect in that sense. Forest have always been very careful in how they've approached this window, but the same as anywhere really, and the same with any player, everybody has a price. If somebody comes up with a lot of money, again, it is difficult to turn that down. Looking at alternatives, they have been looking at wide players and players in a similar kind of mould. So if the worst does happen and Brennan Johnson does leave, then Forest wouldn't be suddenly left adrift in the sense that they've not identified replacements. They have been looking in those kind of areas. So there is a plan. I don't think anybody would want to see Brennan go because of his potential and because of how well he's done this season. But Forest, hopefully, we'll have to see what happens. But like I said, I would be trying to hang on to him.
What else is happening transfer-wise? Steve Cooper said he was sure Brennan wasn't going, although I guess the situation might change, obviously. Lyle Taylor, it looks like he's going on loan. That's what Cooper was telling you last night.
Yep, Lyle Taylor's about to head out on a loan move. He's not had a lot of game time this season. And I think he's desperate to play. He's struggling to get into the first 11 at Forest because Lewis Grabban is his first choice. Obviously, they brought Keenan Davies in as well, who has also been starting games and has been doing really well. Got his goal last night and has looked a really good addition. And I think it's just been tough for Lyle. Obviously, he's not kind of got the chances that he would have liked. I think he's been desperate to play, and it probably suits him, and I'm sure it suits Forest as well to allow him to go out on loan. And Steve Cooper did drop a big hint that there might be other business along the attacking front to make up for that. He did say there's a few days left in the window yet to go, with a big grin on his face. So see what he's got up his sleeves in the coming days. But he has always said that he wouldn't stand in the way of players that wanted to head out elsewhere. He's been very clear again. He said about Brennan Johnson last night and said that he doesn't want players who he wants to keep to leave. Again, I guess that's it's a difficult situation then financially when it comes to Brennan. But in terms of other players going, I think there'll probably be a few more between now and Monday, fringe players who will be allowed to go, but hopefully some incomings as well. So I think it could be an interesting few days ahead before the window closes.
People asking about Brennan's contract, which is fair enough. I mean, there's 18 months left. Forest are put an offer on the table. You don't see him signing one this month, do you? He's kind of got the ball's very much in his court in a contract sense, isn't it? At best, it will be one where it's reviewed in the summer if he's still at the football club.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way he's been playing at the moment, it's, as you say, the ball is in his court. His value has gone up a lot, even since the summer. And what he's worth has gone up a lot since then, with the performances that he's been consistently putting in. So he's in a really good position. From Forest's perspective, yeah, the sooner they get him tied down to any kind of deal, the better, really, because that would put them in a better position for other clubs looking at him. But I think that's probably now looking unlikely before the end of January. He's in fantastic form. Value's gone up hugely. From what we can be happy at Forest, he's enjoying his football. He's enjoying playing under Steve Cooper. He's not somebody who's itching for a move, but it doesn't all rely on him. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
Is that the crux of the gamble, really, do you think? Because there's a year left on his contract, so his value is going to go down in the summer, realistically. I suppose it's the degree to what his value goes down and what Forest are really rolling the dice on by chasing promotion. If it's 18 million now, then maybe it's 12 million in the summer, maybe it's 15 million, maybe it's 10 million, depending on who else comes in for him. There's quite a lot of unknowns. Is that the tricky situation Forest really find themselves in?
Yeah, absolutely. If you get to the summer and he is still here and he does have a year left on his contract, then obviously that changes his value because of that. The top six and managed to get promoted, then that changes everything. Yeah, that's the kind of balance that they have to strike, and the risk and the gamble that you're having to deal with. Again, for me, keeping him and risking losing a few £1 million off his value, but having that chance of potentially getting promoted, that outweighs it, because I think he can be the difference. I think he can really help Forest get into the top 6 and cement their place there. But if you're looking at it from a club perspective, that's something that you've got to try to weigh up.
Yeah, for me as well. I hope we don't look back on this as the night it all went wrong, kind of like the Charlton game a year or 2 years ago. I thought we might have dodged that bullet yesterday, but we'll see. Obviously, Forest, he might well stay, and Forest might well be able to get someone good in. So we don't know entirely. Before you go, give us your thoughts. Well, we should really look at the Barnsley game a little bit. Forest were pretty comfortable there, weren't they? I know Barnsley had a spell in the second half, but Forest did play some good stuff, although it was interesting what Steve Cooper said afterwards around, he just wasn't overly impressed, was he, basically?
Yeah, no, the manager wasn't happy at all. He made that very clear when he came out for his post-match interviews. He was pleased with the result, pleased to get a third consecutive league win, 4 if you include the FA Cup one over Arsenal, and Forest are now in a really good position, just below the top 6. But he wasn't happy with the performance at all, and he did point to that Leeds game from a couple of years ago, how that was a similar kind of atmosphere to what it was against Derby at the weekend, and how there was a lot of emotion involved, and how everybody was on a real high after a result like that. But a couple of years ago, Forest then went and lost days later, and Lyle Taylor scored. And Steve Cooper said he'd mentioned that to the players beforehand and stressed to them that he didn't want that to happen again. He wants Forest to be better. He wants standards to be higher. He doesn't want them to be in that kind of situation. He doesn't want them to settle. And he felt they did. He felt that second half display, he described it as average, and I think you probably have to agree with him. First half, I thought Forest were really good, well in control. 3-0, they should have had more, I think. If you really wanted to put your foot down and really wanted to go for the jugular, they could have had a lot more than that, and I think that would have pleased the manager more. Second half, they were just sloppy. They came out and they really struggled to get going and didn't offer too much of the ball, and didn't test Breeze Samba, but they just had more possession and had a little bit more about them. Forest just let them back into the game, and the manager wasn't happy with that. He wants them to, I think he's looking for a full 90-minute performance, which perhaps they haven't had yet since he's come in. They've had some really good results, some really good performances in there, but in terms of a full 90-minute display, I think he's still searching for that, and that's where Forest are at the minute. They're aiming high, that they're trying to set higher standards than what they've done previously, and if you're going to break into the playoff places, then that's what you need.
First goal for Keenan Davies, a well taken one as well. Hopefully he really kicks on from here with goals. I'm not sure he will, but it was good to see. And Lewis Grabban playing slightly unfamiliarly than most of the parts I watched, out wide, but he's working hard. There's a good partnership striking up there, isn't there?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Keenan Davies since he's come in. I think he last night he worked really hard for it, stole the ball, pushed forward, and then took it really well, kept his cool, showed good composure, and it was a nice finish. He's been really good. I like his hold-up play. I like how hard he works. I like how he gets involved and his link-up play. I think probably the question mark when he did come in was whether he would score goals. Hopefully that does give him confidence now to kick on and get a few more, and a huge help. But Lewis Grabban was great, I thought, last night. He's been in really good form. Obviously, goal scoring form, he's been exceptional, but he worked really hard. He was out on the left quite a bit and made some good runs, tried to get involved, saw a lot of the ball, put some decent crosses in. There was one moment where he perhaps should have do Philip Zinckernagel, or played to Philip Zinckernagel, I should say, and the moment passed him by. But other than that, I thought he was really good. There were some really good individual displays. I think I probably just agree with Steve Cooper in that they didn't look so much as of a team in the second half, which is unlike Forest, because that's been a big strength of theirs. Individually, they played really well. Jack Colback, again, I thought was excellent, going back into left back. Lewis Grabban mentioned Steve Cook. Scott McKenna put in a massive block again, just like he did against Derby. But just in terms of gelling and looking like a cohesive unit, Forest didn't quite have that.
Let's finish on the Brennan Johnson and Lyle Taylor thing then. Would you expect these to be resolved before the weekend? Because obviously the clock's ticking now on the deadline, and you don't want uncertainty going into such a big game. I guess you would want to know either way, particularly with Brennan, but also with Lyle as well, what's happening.
Yeah, Lyle's move sounds like it's going to be done fairly close. I think it would have to be for the manager to come out and speak about it. He doesn't usually talk about transfer business in that way. So I think that will be done quite quickly. Brennan Johnson, it's so difficult to say, isn't it? If Forest do reject this bid, but then somebody else comes in, or Brentford come back with another bid that's even higher, or with more various incentives, then you're left in the same position again, unless Forest come out and say, no, we're not selling it at all, whatever the price. But yeah, I think it's there's not many days left in the transfer window. So ideally, you'd like to know before the Cardiff game or on Sunday, but it's January, isn't it? And so many things can happen. There's so many ups and downs and twists and turns, and especially when you've got the number of clubs looking at Brennan Johnson that he has.
Last one that I should have asked earlier. If he were to go to Brentford, I can't see a scenario where he comes back on loan. I know people have said that. Maybe if he goes to Chelsea or Liverpool or whoever they was coming late, but that's not in the time. That's not in the picture at the moment. But if he were to go to Brentford, they'd be very unlikely to send splash out a record transfer fee when they're struggling in the Premier League and send him back, would they?
Yeah, I think so. The position they're in and the money that they would spend, I think they'd be wanting him straight in and trying to get him integrated and make the most of him. I would have thought that'd be quite unlikely, but if it was a different club, then maybe. But it's Brentford who are really sniffing around at the moment.
Right, we shall leave it there. It wasn't very upbeat, was it, after a 3-0 win? But that's the way the fans are feeling today. So we'll hopefully bring you some news on Brennan Johnson's situation soon. But a good win for Forest. They moved within a point of the playoffs. We'll be back tomorrow, I think. I'm speaking to Gareth Taylor, the Man City women's manager, in the next hour, and we'll put that out with the Forest women's manager as well. Obviously, Gareth's got Forest connection, so we'll talk about that. And we'll be back with the main podcast on Tuesday, I think, and we'll talk deadline day on Monday with Sarah. Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your internet delay's gone. That's
good
time. Right. Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.